Yep, you did. Cool.
Cool.
All right. Go ahead, Sam. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to create a protocol. There's a lot of different ways to get to protocols, which, we've discussed about, simplifying it, making it, just a one way to get there. But right now you can go to protocols, the list of protocols by going to create and find, hitting protocols.
Mhm.
That takes you directly there. Or you can click on document and you get this document screen where you can also choose to get to protocols from there. And it takes you to the exact same place
Mhm.
as, the create and find drop down protocols. And usually it's a little faster than this, but maybe it's because I'm sharing my screen. So then we have all of these protocols. And, ideally we'll have the tabs, right, for protocols where it's all protocols or just the active ones. But this is all protocols right now. And you'll notice that I have the option to edit this protocol because I'm the owner of it, PNAMP support. And we have a whole bunch of filters. We've kind of gone over all of this. I'm just going to create a new protocol because, say I can't clone any of these ones or, work on my own version, one of my own or something like that. Let's just create a protocol. First thing to do, protocol title. And you can put anything you want in here because you'll be able to edit it later, but it just can't be, there are some regulations to protocol title name. So if you tried to put in I think they won't allow acronyms like BPA, stuff like that, and they'll give you a warning. But it doesn't have to be perfect right here. You can create your protocol. And then you can change it later. So yeah, I can still edit this title. So now the first thing to look at when you're creating a protocol or for when BPA project sponsors are creating a protocol is this visibility. So right now, only they can see the full draft protocol or anyone they are colleagues with. And we haven't gone over colleagues, collaborators, but that's an option in monitoring resources. You can make your colleagues have the capability to collaborate on your material, and it'd be all of your material. It's not protocol specific or method specific. Or you can have like a COR have review ability where they can see all of your draft stuff, but they can't edit it. Or you can change this tab to everybody, and now everyone can see your draft protocol in its entirety. They won't be able to edit it or anything like that. But when it's just owner and colleague, they can only see a few of the sections before it's finalized. So that's first thing to look at. Going to add supplemental information here, like annual reports or peer-reviewed articles. And then you add a monitoring program, and this gets a little bit tricky because sometimes your monitoring program doesn't show up in here, or you have multiple monitoring programs. But if it doesn't show up in there, you can just click on this not listed, and that pings me, sends an email to me, and it you can request a monitoring program be added. So when I click on not listed, they have this option to request a monitoring program.
Got it.
Which usually takes a day or two. I mean, as it depends on when I see it, but usually it's pretty quick. Rationale, there's description on what the rationale should look like. Underneath all these major sections, there's little information here. Help text, objectives, same thing. You can add multiple objectives. And as far as like BPA project sponsors, their contracts likely have objectives that they can kind of just copy and paste into their protocol. The thing about that is I'm usually not looking at their contracts. I'm just looking at the completeness of their protocol. So I'm not checking to see if their objectives in monitoring resources match their objectives on CB Fish. But potentially, that would be like their COR would check that. It shouldn't be a big deal, but sometimes, it is.
Got
it. So that the workflow here, it's good to kind of get this first page done, save regularly. And we mentioned this last time. Oops. Methods is next in this dropdown, but I think metrics and indicators is the more logical next step. So I go to metrics and indicators, and I'm going to identify which metrics and indicators I'm measuring in this protocol. So since I don't have any, I create a metric and indicator, and we talked about this the other time. These titles should kind of be specific to you, but no one else. I mean, people will see the titles of them if they're looking at your protocol, but it's really the categories, subcategories, and focuses that are more important, I guess, here. Because these titles, you could title them whatever you wanted, but ideally they're helpful. And there's, we give them some suggestions here. So fish length, pork length, tubes. You could do something like that. And then I go to category fish, gives you a definition of what a fish is or study of fish is. Subcategory length. And then I can choose an option. And because I'm just doing juvenile fish, I'm going to select juvenile fish, or I can get more specific here. But I'll just put juvenile fish. And then it doesn't need any more information from me. It would give me an option too if I could, but it doesn't. So I click save. And now I have that metric in my metrics and indicators. And what's nice about that is when I go to methods now, since I already have a metric and I want to add a method, it will suggest methods for me based on the metric I created. So it's not looking at the title, but it's looking at all those categories, subcategories, focuses. So now I have, I don't know how many there are here, but a few methods for that potentially could measure my fork length in a fish. And I know that measuring fish length, fork length version 2.0 is a good one. But if I didn't know that was a good one, I could click on more. And I just get like a little bit of information about that method here in another pop-up. So you get that stepwise procedure, and you get like a citation and stuff like that, owner, whatnot. So if you know the owner, you know the citation, this can be a helpful little tool. So I say that one's good. And I'm just gonna click on, oops, this one, click save. Okay, that's great. We have a method and we have a metric. And the next thing we need to do.
Can you go back for a second?
Yes.
So I think that one of the things that's So one of the things that we're trying to stress is, so methods are their own little pieces as well. So, but we want people to reuse them. We really want to promote reuse. So this process of like selecting an existing method, can you click add method here, Sam?
Yeah.
One potential like future improvement in the tool would be to try and figure out a way to make this a little more streamlined as well. Because there's some searching functionality built in here. You can click on the entire library. I don't remember what that's the thing called. Radio button, is that it?
Yeah.
And then there's some searching here, but it's not. It's okay. It's not great.
Right.
Also, so there's rules around methods where you can't put a method in a protocol unless it's published. The method is published, or finalized. Finalized is the word we use now, sorry. It's finalized, but we have built in this tool. If you hit that create method button there, Sam.
Yeah.
From within a protocol, if you like do all this search and you can't find your method, you can save and create a new method, and it will put that in your protocol even though it's not finalized. Just because you own both of them, so you can have the power to edit both of them. The reason we don't let people put draft methods in their protocols that they don't create from there is because there's chances that method will never be finished. So then to finalize a protocol, all methods have to be finalized.
Right.
And so like it's kind of like a trickle down thing. So this is one of the ways in the last couple of years we've tried, because we didn't used to have this create and add method to a protocol within the protocol. So this is one of the ways in the last couple of years we tried to like help keep people sort of on one path, like in the protocol, because they used to have to move away from the protocol, create a method, get back to the protocol, blah, blah, like do all this other stuff. They still have to go out at some point to finish the method, but now at least it's added, at least that method is added to the protocol.
Right.
So.
Okay. I guess in terms of sort of getting people to use existing methods as part of the protocol they're creating, what do you see as the reasons people don't?
Sure. I think that there's a couple reasons. One, they can't find them. Like just some people are like, nope, too cumbersome to search and find, too hard. And then sometimes people have slight differences in methodology, which we've tried to accommodate with something we call customizing a method. So within the protocol itself, so now you've added these methods to the protocol, and you can see there's this little pen pad. If you click that, you can like make slight comments about changes that you particularly apply. So I think the two major reasons people don't use things is they don't understand that you can say, oh, I slightly changed it, or they just can't find it. And they are just trying to get things done as quick as possible. But for us, it's like quick as possible is to reuse what exists already.
I mean, how do you feel like the suggested methods are doing on sort of a practical basis of like actually offering like the best possible option for people? I mean, it's a lot of options there on that list, and I guess like, how am I to differentiate between everything here,
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, because all these methods have gone through a review process, but there are definitely some methods that are better than others. And the best thing you can do with these suggested methods is, if you don't know what it is, click on this more and try to get an idea of if it works with your protocol. So you get this more, oops. And, you know, oh, it usually doesn't do that. I think it's just because I'm sharing my screen or something. But you can read through the procedure before you add it, which is nice. You can always delete a method from your protocol also and create a new one if you don't find anything. But let's say we like this one. I don't remember which one it was. Mark. Save. I don't remember if we own this method, but say this is pretty accurate, but things need to be fixed, or, you know, maybe like our equipment is a little bit different, or our stepwise procedure was a little bit different. You can customize this method specifically for this protocol. So when you customize a method, no one else can use that customized method. It's only specific to this protocol. Other people can use the original method and customize it their own way, but you can't add someone else's customized method to your protocol.
And does your customized method need to be finalized in some way?
No. Well, the
No.
method itself beforehand has to be finalized,
Right.
or else you wouldn't be able to add it to your protocol. But once they customize it and just say like, I don't know, we don't do step 2 or something like that. You just have to give some sort of indication on what's different.
Got it. Okay.
And I think
It doesn't go through a review process though.
Got it.
yeah, it's intended for like small changes that maybe won't like we collect 10 cross sections instead of 15, you know, something that's like, oh, we want to note this, but we don't want to.
Or like a little equipment change, like with fish length or whatever, we use a measuring tape instead of a measuring board. Pretty simple stuff where you aren't making huge changes to the method. If you need to make huge changes to a method, I would just suggest they create a new method.
Got it. Okay.
Um,
Back to like the suggested method sort of interface, like, you know, the sort of data we're using to give you the suggested methods, the metric and indicator that we use. I guess I'm wondering, like, given what, like, are there similar sort of inputs we could do on a per protocol basis? Like, this is the type of protocol this is, or this is where it is, like that could sort of filter this list more. Like, is that, is there data within the system that could be helpful in this regard?
Yeah, I think you could say like this, we could say like these methods are used by used in an ODF and W protocol or something. Like you could narrow it down by like what other monitoring programs use that method. And that could help people potentially. So, you know, we could add another search thingamabobber in here, I don't know, where it would say, okay, like, okay, here's all the suggested methods based on the metric or indicator you entered. Here are the ones that are applied by your program or ODF&W or WDFW or something like that. Like, I think that could help people understand the methodology or narrow down the methodology. I also think we could build in a tool to metric and indicators where people, so metric and indicators, I try to explain to people as they're often the column headers in your data set. Not all the column headers, you know, some things in your data set are like stream name, that's more metadata. But if you thought about metrics and indicators as like the actual like monitoring values that are produced, or the values that are produced, the numbers, well, sometimes they're categorical. Anyways, the values that are produced from your data set, you could build in a tool where you uploaded like a CSV, and then we walk people through classifications of each of those. Be like, okay, this is a metadata field, so we don't have to do that or something. And then that would streamline this instead of people having to like enter one by one metric and indicator title. Like instead, they just copy it out of their data set and upload it. And then from that, they would have to do the classification, because that's how we find methods, but then we could find methods based on those classifications, and that might really help streamline this process as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then I guess, like, is there another level of this potentially, like, are there methods that you might consider like PNAMP, like gold star methods? I don't know, like some sort of like checkbox in the back end that Sam can say like, you should really be thinking about this one, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we have had those conversations, and there's various like things built into the tool to do that, like BPA approved methods, or I think at one point we had a ranking in there, but we never have followed through on that. But if it was something that I think people thought was valuable, it wouldn't be that hard. It would take some work, but we could export the list of methodology and work with like classify them by subject, and then work with subject matter experts to like recommend this one. We could probably do it pretty much based on references, like, oh, things that came from the AFS book, the American Fisheries Society book. So I think there'd be like some ways that PNAMP staff could do that, but then we could probably then run that kind of list, that short list, by some sort of expert panel, a couple of biologists, and say, is this the list of recommended methods for this? So I think that if that's fell to the top of priorities, I think that would be possible to do and would help people a lot, instead of like, oh, like we talked about, oh, there are all these fish length methods. There are 4 or 5 AFS fish length methods. That's what people should be using. Like, stop entering a fish length.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, like that experience of seeing that list, while good that it's narrowed down by all those categories and focuses, like it would be great if they were arranged in some sort of like helpful way that made me think,
Like
okay,
yeah, this
like
this
a
method
Google
has been used
ranking,
the most,
right?
or something. Yeah.
Right. Those sort like a Google ranking for like, you should really
Yeah.
consider this one, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The cheapest way to do that would be to rank them by the number of protocols they're included in. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a good method. It just means that a lot of people have used it.
Right.
But that would be like a lowest hanging fruit to think about that. Okay, this method's been used by like 48 protocols. Like, what about this one? Some of those are bad. They're not good because they were like they just were part of the original port of the system. So,
right.
But it would be an easy way to say, okay, here's the methods listed in order of their use.
I mean, you could set a start date on when to start that count from, like
Totally,
if it's after 2012 or whenever that sort of cutoff would be, like.
That'd be cool.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we could spend some time and attention on like getting people to actually reuse methods. I think that would be great.
Yeah, and in the past I think we have somewhere in a story laid out an idea of when people start entering a new method title, like say that I was going to enter a new method, you have to title it. So I started length, like suggesting methods, existing methods. And I think we didn't do that because I think it didn't fall out that year, but I'm pretty sure we have some documentation around that so are you sure you want to create a new method? Here are the 5 like existing length methods or something like that. Just to really like force people to make that conscious decision to not randomly create things. Because they do that, and then Sam sends them an email and says, what about using the existing method?
Right. I mean, I guess, is it the majority of cases that like people should or could just use existing methods and they'd be just fine? Like, how often do people need to create custom methods?
I would say most protocols, I would say like 90% of the protocol, they can use existing methods. There's usually, 10% of their protocol is unique to them, where they need to create their own method. But, if it is, I don't know, 8 methods in a protocol, I'd guess almost like 7 of them, they can use existing ones that they either customize or just use as is. And they will just have to really create a new one. But even when I suggest an existing method to someone, a lot of the times I'll get responses back saying, I'd rather just have my own. Thank you.
Yeah.
Even though the finalization process of that will take them longer amount of time to deal
Yeah.
with it.
And I mean, us talking back and forth is part of that finalization process. But I kind of get it. It's like the issue is they've already created this method, and now I'm suggesting they use a different method. So we do need to there needs to be a way like on the front end to indicate kind of like, the suggestion Becca had where they start typing in to create a new method, a title, and it's like, these methods might actually work for you already. But yeah, they've put in the work and effort of creating a fish length method. And now I'm telling them there's already a fish length method. And so then they're just like, well, I'd rather use the one I just spent 2 hours creating.
Okay, got it.
So. But the other, other little issue, sorry, the other little issue with creating these or searching for these methods, if I type in weight, I have 205 matches here. So if you're searching the entire library, it's only searching for finalized methods, but it's any method that mentions weight. It doesn't come necessarily from the title. It could be in the rationale, and author, equipment. So it's really pulling from a lot. So it's helpful. You aren't looking through thousands of methods, but you still have 205 methods to look through.
Do methods not have a similar categorization sort of taxonomy like metrics do?
No. Yeah, you title them any way you want, and then, well, sort of.
Yeah. The way that we perform that suggested method is based on other metrics that people have hooked to that method. Did that make sense? Sorry, I think I got my words confused.
Yeah.
Like, we don't actually classify the method itself into those categories. It's based on
the metrics
that people have associated with them. And
right.
Yeah, Sam, maybe you show the method association now.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing, when you add a method from a suggested metric, it maps it already. So you don't have to do the process, which is great.
All right.
That's another reason why it helps to create the metrics and indicators first, and then you add suggested methods. Those suggested methods, if you choose one of them, map to your metric or indicator automatically. But say I add this fish identification method, add it to my list. My save is down here. I'm going to need to map that fish identification method to my metrics and indicators. So, because all methods that are finalized need to be mapped to metrics and indicators. So I don't think I'll be able to map the one we created that we haven't finalized yet.
Yeah.
The electrofishing data collection method that we created, I can't map until it's finalized, I believe.
Got it.
So now I have this electrofishing data collection method and the one I just added, the fish identification data entry method, and they're unmapped. I can map those. Let's see. I should be able to map this fish identification method to this metric here by clicking on, I clicked on this arrow first, add method, and I guess I can add both. So that's, I can even add our draft method, associate it with that fish length metric. So let's do that. Click save. So we have those three methods mapped to this fish length fork length, whatever metric. But this fish identification one, maybe it doesn't measure fish length. We would have to add another metric or indicator, which would just be like fish ID or something. And then again, we go in here.
Sam.
Yeah.
I think that do this, and then I think that we gotta fly a little bit because we got like we maybe gotta go link all these like we can't go. We have to get to the linking this to a study plan and a study plan to a sample design.
Sure. Yeah.
We can spend forever on any of these being like, fix this, fix this.
Right. So I save that. I have this fish ID metric. I'm just gonna map it to one of my existing methods, and I can map it to all of them. You can map your metrics and indicators to multiple methods and vice versa. So let's just say this one is unmapped. Click save. And there we go. We have that. All of our methods are now mapped to metrics and indicators. Other two things are just literature cited, and citation is currently not required.
We should just make it required.
It needs to be required.
Yeah.
They don't need to have literature cited required, but citation needs to be required for like finalization.
I'll just write that down. We'll just do that.
Yeah.
Or something. I keep forgetting.
It can be really simple. You can click on this radio button and it cites this protocol for you. Or if it came from like something else, you can do that.
I see. Sometimes people just transcribe protocol or methods or protocols into the system.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm going to delete our draft method just so I can finalize this guy.
Yeah. Make.
So the draft method still exists out there. It's just deleted from this protocol.
Got it.
Put in like okay, so once you've met all the requirements for a protocol, you can request finalizing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now it's in review. And it'll pop up to me and to anyone who's an administrator that this protocol has been requested for finalization. So we have that. Becca, do you know if you can add a protocol in review to a study plan?
I don't remember.
Well, let's check.
Let's try it. This will be fun.
So now we need to create a study plan.
Yeah, so now at this point, BPA users sometimes go back to their contract and they look for the protocol and it's like, nope, that's not right. Like you have to build the study. It has to be the study plan that is the link to the
Right.
BPA.
Got
Work
it.
on this.
Choose a monitoring program here. Let's do that one. And now this is where I would choose my protocol. So you know, you need to have a protocol. I don't know if it's gonna show up. So yep, there it is. So it does show up, which is great. And nice little feature here, because study plans and protocols both have objectives, you can just import your objectives that you created for your protocol if they're the same. So I'm going to do that, and your rationale. Click save. All right, so now I have this study plan. It has the same background rationale as my protocol. It has the same objectives. So that's why you kind of have, you need to create that protocol first. It's attached to a protocol, right? And from here, you can create a new sample design, which is great. So when you create a new sample design from your study plan, it automatically links to that study plan. If you create a sample design outside of your study plan, you would just need to identify the study plan that it is related to.
And how do you do that?
I will show you here. Did I open a new tab? I think I did. I'm just going to save this real quick. Also, so study plans don't go through finalization. So they can finalize their study plan anytime they want. It says request finalizing, but I don't, maybe it shouldn't say request here.
It's because it's not a reviewed thing.
It
just
isn't
sort of
reviewed.
It's just a personal thing. Like, I'm saying this is final, and so I'm putting this out there.
Yeah.
But you can't edit a finalized.
Yeah.
study
So
plan?
now I can't edit this.
Right.
Because I just finalized it. What would happen if someone finalized it and they needed to edit it? They can either version it,
Mhm.
so they can create a new version of it, which is fine, or they can just come to me and I can make it a draft again. I can revert it back to a draft.
Got it.
Okay, but so from sample design, I'm creating a sample design. What's the name of the study plan? I go create sample design. And this is if I didn't create my sample design within my study plan.
Mhm.
Identify what kind of sample design it is. It kind of depends on like what you need to do within your within building your sample design. So if it's a grits design, you're going to have more maneuver options, I guess.
Yeah, the workflow changes depending on which of these you select.
Got it.
I'm just going to do opportunistic design. Next. And this just takes you to your create sample design at front page. Ease of access, that's what because I chose opportunistic. Ease of access is just one of those options. You could do historic precedent if you're like working on at a dam site or something like that, but ease of access is pretty common. Data repository, this is where you select one or multiple data repositories and you select it here. You used to select it in BP or CB Fish, but now they select their data repositories here. And you can choose more than one. And again, if it's not listed, they can request a data repository listed. So I have two selected, state draft, and here, this is where I identified the study plan. If I didn't create the sample design from within the study plan. So again, I just search for my study plan.
Oh, you can associate a sample design with a finalized study plan.
Yes. And you
That's
might
not
be able
that's
to
not that's not
associate it
editing
with
it.
one that you just created and it's not finalized.
Mhm. Got it.
Yeah. And then you just hit create. But the study plan is what links CBFish to monitoring resources.
Right.
And then, it'll show that there's a sample design there and a protocol associated with it.
And so that study plan at this point is effectively complete, even though like all
It is, even though like the sample design isn't complete.
Yeah.
So what will happen in CBFish is it'll have like half moons or whatever they're called for some of the sample design sections.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll have like a half moon for area of inference because we haven't identified an area of inference yet. It'll have half moons for, I don't know the categories. I'm assuming there's one like sampling locations because we haven't identified sampling locations. And it'll have a half moon for like sample period because we haven't identified a sample period, which we all do in the sample design. But it'll know that there is a sample design associated with the study plan. And so once you finalize the sample design and you do all those sections, you'll get the full moons and you can move on with your contract.
Got it.
Because once it's, I don't know, reviewed by your COR or whatever.
Got it.
Am I missing anything, Becca?
No, I mean, there are like lots of things within the sample design and
There are.
that we could need, that it'd be great to have someone with your like skill set look at. But I feel like we really zoomed in on the methods and the protocols because that's like the part that we think is most used by people and really unique about the tool. But if we can figure out if we zoom out and think about more a bigger picture, like like you saw, like you had to create a protocol, you could create methods from within that protocol. You also can create methods outside that protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's hard to find the methods. Sometimes you recreate methods that already exist. Then you have to create a study plan. You have to link it to you have to select a protocol. Then you have to create a sample design, and you have to either select it or create it from within. Like it's just like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, part of what I feel like, and I asked earlier about like, okay, it seems like study plans are the thing, and like there's the system of like, there's this path people have to take to get a finalized study plan, essentially, right? That hooks into CBFish, and like then they can go do their thing once it's all approved, right? And like that's one that. I was like, is that the only use case? And you're like, no, sometimes people create protocols or sometimes people just create methods. But it seems to me that like the site isn't one size fits all, but like there is this one main pathway for all this BPA work that requires these 4 different entities to talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
And that we could do a better job of walking them through that process. Like there's like a linear story of like, do this, step 1, step 2, step 3, and like you know where you are on those steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I think Sam last week you had shown a slide or an email that you have where it's like this is the steps to get things done, right?
Yeah.
And like I feel like the system should reflect that kind of understanding of like the best journey to take while on MR, right?
Yeah.
So like it's cool that like there's this graphic up top that's sort of visualizing the hierarchy of things, but like it doesn't tell you much in terms of like how to get the thing you want to get done in the best possible way.
No.
Right.
Especially since it's non-linear, right? You go protocol, method, protocol, study plan, sample design.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we didn't know how to draw that diagram.
Right.
So the this new study plan summary there's been talks about you can do all of your editing from within the study plan summary. So I created, once you create a study plan, it creates a study plan summary. And so this is, the mishmash study plan that I created. And you can see your study plan basics. But it also has, our protocol here and our methods. And there's been talks like, oh, it'd be nice to just add methods from the study plan summary and add metrics from this study plan summary. At one point, we were calling it like a splash page, which I don't know what that means, honestly.
I don't know at all.
But you could do everything from one spot, which would be great. You don't have to jump back and forth between things. This is sort of the workflow, except study plan basics is still first.
Right.
But you have, this protocol here. You scroll down, you have your sample design, and you can add all your sites to your sample design here. And you can add your area of inference here. And then this is all. So really what it is one study plan. And you can have multiple sample designs within a study plan, but one study plan is right on one screen. And you can view everything. It's really more of a discovery tool right now. It's not a documentation tool at all. But it would be kind of cool if it was a documentation tool as well. But it, there's a lot of issues, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so from my perspective, the thing that you've walked me through today is that like there's this linear step, like you have to do step A before you can do step B, right?
Yeah.
And like this screen, it's sort of like do whatever step you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure that necessarily fits with what you're talking about, because if you don't have a metric, you can't pick a method. If you can't pick a method, you can't do a protocol, right? Like, so from my perspective, like I think, and it's really interesting because certain parts of the application does a really good job of like having these detailed descriptions of like what this is or what you need to do with it. And I think we could extend that into like, here's the 8-step process it is to get a finalized study plan, right? And that like the application could support that high level process and with like wayfinding and guideposts and things like that. But like when I look at this, I'm like, I'm not sure the logic would work, because like, can I just jump into creating a protocol without methods and metrics? No. So I don't know.
Yeah, it would almost, it would have to be like numbered along here, and you can only get into it once you've gotten to that right.
And that's essentially what I'm saying is like you'd be on step 1, and whether it's on one page or multiple pages like it is currently, I don't think it necessarily matters, but I just think you need to be guided. And so like if there's like this one DPA sort of study plan version of like the workflow for the website, like tell me like what are the other ones for like Delve or whatever it is that you're like, let me just create a protocol or let me just create a method, which is a separate workflow from the big study plan workflow, right?
Yeah.
Because those would be two different sets of instructions or 3 different sets of instructions, right?
For sure. And we're kind of doing that in Delve right now, where we're creating a guidance just for them. So.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing that we end up doing is we create a lot of guidance documents, slideshows, like because
videos.
But if we could build that into the tool, then Sam and I wouldn't have to like write guidance documents. It would be like just follow the steps, in the tool.
Right. And I mean, I think part of it is that like everyone has a different endpoint of what they're trying to accomplish, right?
Right.
Yes.
And so, I think, the tool currently has the capabilities of porting all those things, but doesn't point you in the right direction of how to accomplish them, right?
Yeah.
And so you could sort of create journeys or experiences of just here's the protocol track, or here's the study plan track, or here's the method track, right? So that's how I would approach it. It's sort of like, yeah, you could do all these things, but like I think it's more about like what are the use cases that are meaningful given your endpoint,
right,
as a user. So
Yeah, I think that would be super helpful to people, and it would streamline our need to explain things, which would eventually, saves staff time.
right. And I mean, I think like it's necessarily complicated, right? Like it's a lot of different
Yeah.
data, like entities like that are like combining together. Like that's not as simple as like setting up your Wi-Fi, right? Like
Right.
it is necessarily complicated, and takes expertise to like write a method or build a protocol, right? And so
Yeah.
it's cool software that's not working great, but like it's cool software. So
Yeah. Let's make it work better. Well, you guys make it work better. I'll check back in next year. Okay, so we have 2 minutes. I think that's what we wanted to tell you. So I don't know what we do next. Really, do you want to like take it back, think about it, and then come back to us with questions, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we should sort of define what the ask is. I feel like what you're asking is like, how do we make these workflows more manageable and that accomplish these sub goals around like using existing protocols or methods, right? Or using existing methods. So like if we want to define like what are like the wins within that, I think that makes sense. But if the big picture thing is like, let's make these workflows that are specific to these endpoints, I think we can go away and start looking at what we have now and like mock up some ideas of like for that step system of like do this, then do this, then do this, and how the application supports knowing where you are within that sort of progression.
Yeah, I think that's the question. Like, let's make the workflows that guide our major user groups to the endpoint with the least amount of pain points. And like, we know that there are pain points within each of the like,
within each of the steps. Yeah.
But like, let's zoom out and start at the big picture and say, okay, how do we get a study plan with all the fully documented objects underneath it? How do we get a protocol with all the fully documented objects underneath it? And then how do we like get methods? And how do we get people into those workflows where they're not like, what?
Right. I mean, part of it makes me think that there needs to be like a scaffolding system that's like, this is my draft of a study. This is my draft workflow for creating a new study plan. And it's sort of like, it's giving me check marks along the way of like, oh, I've done this part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I've done this part of it. And then when you hit done, it'll like convert it into like a draft study plan. Right. That sort of thing, where because like this what you're showing me on is like the finalized version of a study plan, right? But like isn't necessarily like the tool to like build it out. But if like there was this intermediate interface of like, all right, step 1, go build your protocol, and then you go do that, and it takes you back to this scaffolding, and then like, okay, step 2, add your metrics, and then add your methods, like all that sort of stuff. Like I think that would be probably the way to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Yeah, I like that idea. I like the idea of like check marks or like that kind of.
Right.
You've got this complete. You're whatever percent there to doing whatever you're supposed to be doing. Thinking about people getting back to it easily. Thinking about help text that like says, okay, you are a BPA, like you're a BPA product contractor. Don't go down these other paths. Like this is your path.
Right.
Like just that kind of thing. Cool. Okay, so let's see. So we don't have a meeting next week. because we do every other week meetings. So then we have a meeting on the 13th, and there's other stuff we'll need to talk about in that meeting because I haven't been doing my job to QA stories. There's much stories in client testing. So Sam, you and I should go over that this week.
Sure.
Or next week. Let's do it next week. Is it already Wednesday? Thanks. So then maybe in 2 weeks, are you available at this time again on
the 13th?
13th? Yeah.
Yeah, it's already in my calendar. Yeah.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
want to join that, and then we can talk a little bit more, like questions that come up, or if like you have big picture thoughts, or just sort of
check in? I can maybe try to throw together like a low fidelity sort of mock up or prototype of like, here's what we talked about and here's the system is. Here's essentially what we could be building towards. I think I could put something together for that meeting.
Don't you miss whiteboards? Like, I think technology is amazing, but sometimes I miss just getting in the room and like drawing things on the whiteboard. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's check in back on the 13th, and Sam and I are here if you via email or whatever, if you have any questions between now and then we'll sort of go from there on where we stand and figure out, if we sort of have a sketch of what we double check things, then I think we can just keep sort of plugging away and moving forward.
Yeah.
Great.